Welcome back to this final part 4 of how to create moving art and graphics along a real wall. Now we've done all the hard work, we've done the rotoscope and we've cleaned up the wall, we've set up our scene. Now all that's left to do is just have fun, put any animation designs you want on the wall. We're going to add some color grade, some fake depth of field, and we're just going to get creative. So let's get going. So now the fun part, we can finally add animation, graphics, whatever you want to this wall. You've done the hard work. You've cleaned up the wall, we've sorted out the grass, we've done multiple layers to get this nice fringing, we've done the massive task of rotoscoping me or whoever you've filmed out, and we've got everything set up in layers and we're ready to just have fun. We can put whatever we want on these walls. So now if you remember from my original, I added sort of these nice sort of vibrant graphics, and I'm going to show you my comps in a minute, what I did with those. And then after we've added our graphics, we're also going to go through and add a color grade. Now you can see if I just remove this layer here, it's called grade. I'm just going to turn this off. You can see it's quite clinical. So this is just the raw color from the camera. There's no color grading. It's always good to add a color grade, and you can sort of play with that as well. I ended up going for sort of a retro-ish sort of burnt amber sort of feel. And then also, if you notice, I've added a fake depth of field. It's very simple. Let me just turn the grade off. We're going to do that as well. I'm going to go to here, my background blur, and if I just turn it off, you can see in the background it's quite sharp. Sorry, you can see it's quite sharp there. Let me just turn it back on again. There you go, off and on again. There you go. So it does add just a nice bit of depth along with our color grading, and there you go. So now I'm going to show you my compositions, how I set up my animations. Now you can do this however you want. So you can add in one huge animation and graphic and just move that around where you want. You can break this up into 10, 20, 30 different comps. You can put one little animation here, blend these in. You know, you can do whatever you want. The way we set this up, it's completely editable. So let me just show you how I set up my comps. So I've got a wall anim 1 and wall anim 2. I did 2 separate long wide comps because otherwise it's just going to get too long and thin. So let me just go over to this little menu here and go fit, and this actually zooms it up to scale. So as you can see, so this is my animation as a flat animation. Now as you know, I'm going to give you the backplate away, so I'm going to give all this footage for you to practice with. Obviously it would be great for you to record your own, but I'm going to supply all this as well, completely free for everyone to try. I'm not going to give away these graphics because that would just defeat the purpose of you you know, experimenting, having fun and just doing something creative. But I am going to do a follow-up video where I just sort of go through the different components of what I use and how I created them, because you know it is going to take some time just to, obviously I can't show in detail each bit. That would be another sort of 3-4 hour lessons, but just briefly I used Ouroboros plugin here to get all these nice lines. All these bits of 3D here, if I just zoom in the camera, that was all done by 3D modeling in, I did this all in Maya and animated it by hand. And the pyramid here, that's all 3D as well, and I just rendered it as wireframe and just filled it with white. And then this lovely line here following sort of the pyramid sort of rocket ship, whatever you want to call it, that was done with a great plugin called Superline. So I'll leave the link to the description where you can get that. And the eyeball I actually just animated just with animated shapes and paths inside of After Effects. So that was one of the walls, and then I had part 2 here as well. Let me just go into here, and this is where my whole theme, I had this, you're sort of being looked at by CCTV or just something's looking at you. That was a sort of general theme, just to sort of have a sort of, you know, theme of the actual project really. And this, I've used the sort of rocket again, the same really cool plugin with super lines, but these nice particles and cubes were all done again in Maya, but with the system that's built in called Mesh. And again, I'll just quickly show that maybe in another video because it would just take too long to just go through here. But so that's the way I've set mine up. I've done 2 separate long comps, and you can see that. Let's just go back to the tutorial here. If I just drag the timeline along, it does chug a bit, lag a bit now because there's a lot of layers. as you can see. So this is the end of my first comp, and this is the beginning of the second one. So as you can see in my layer stack here, I've got wall anim 1, it's this one here, and I've also got wall anim 2, which is here, and it starts here. And as I scroll across, I just sort of space them out so I can blend them right the way through to my end shot. Let me just scroll to the end here, and I've just got this nice cube shooting out, and the text saying I can see you, I see you. Okay, so that is how I set mine up. So you know, it's a blank canvas. Get creative. I would love to see what you guys create with this. So without further ado, let's now let me show you how I get these graphics onto the wall, which I hope you sort of can imagine now. It's really simple, just placing it there as we did back in the first lessons when we did tests and we put the wall, we've done the camera tracking. So it's literally a case of just putting it on the wall and spacing it out. So let's drag those on now and get our graphics on the wall. Okay, so let's start by dragging our wall anim 1 out onto our stage anywhere, or you can drag it down to here. Now I'm going to quickly just put our resolution down to a 1/3 to make things run quicker, and I'm also going to turn back on our proxy up here just to help things run quicker. Now here's our animation. So as you can see, it's just over the top. Now I've got it underneath the me rotate out, which is what you need, but we also need it underneath the grass. So let's click on the layer and drag it down to under ground main, and now you can see it goes behind the grass. So now wherever we move this, so let's just say move this around, you can see it's always behind the grass and behind me. Okay, so now we want to, just as we did before, turn it to a 3D layer. Now if you don't see the cube symbol, you need to go to toggle switches, click that again, okay, and then you'll swap between the two. So let's turn it to a 3D layer. Now there's a few ways we could get this into position. We can do it the first way, where we just copy the position and rotation values from track null, like we did in lesson 1 or 2. Or we can literally, you could duplicate one of these wall patches and swap it out and then reposition. So let's do the original way first. Let's open up our track null. Let's go to orientation. So we're going to hit the R key. I'm going to hit orientation, and it selects all of them here. I'm going to hit Control C to copy. We're going to go to our wall anim, and we're going to hit the R key to bring up the rotation again, and we're going to click the orientation, and we're just going to paste it in. Now that is actually sorted out the rotation of it, but you can see we can't see it. It's because it's actually zoomed out quite far, because we need to do the position as well. So let's go to track null 1, hit the P key, and now we're going to copy the position. So select the position and it will select all of them. Copy, go back to our wall anim part 1, hit the P key for position, select it all and paste it in, and there you go. You can just see it come in, which is exactly on our tracking null there. I'm going to zoom back in. Now I'm just going to, you can either obviously just use the X, Y and Z and just drag it across, or you can go over the X arrow and just drag it across into place. Okay, so now we can just position it wherever we want. And you can see it's quite small here, so we're going to just scale it up. Now you won't lose resolution because everything's in 3D space. The composition I set up here is 6,000 pixels inside. Let's just go to composition settings, 6,000 wide by 2,400 high. You know, you don't have to go that high, or you can go high, just whatever your machine can handle. And also it depends on the graphics you're going to put on as well. So go back to our composition, and I'm just going to hit the S key for scale, and I'm going to set this to 300. There you go, and it sits quite nicely. So let's just move this into place. Now I'm going to move this across. I'm going to use the X again. Now I'm not even going to start this animation until frame sort of 60. I don't just want me sort of stood there looking like a lemon. It's going to start as I'm walking, so something around here. I'm going to hit the B key to start the timeline from there, and when it sort of gets here, I want this sort of animation to start kicking off, so something like that would be good. Yeah, that looks good. And I walk past the eye. Let me just open up here and something like that. Now I wanted to get it in my original, where I turn around just after the eye. So let me just go back to the beginning here, and there you go. I walk in front of the eye, just as I turn around here, and then he looks up as the rocket's coming down. Again, you know, it all depends on your scene. And I think I might have done this too fast, so let's just bring this over. I want sort of me to look up at the graphics. Okay. So yeah, that looks pretty good, and you might want to sort of play with this. I'm actually going to rotate in Z a little bit as well. You can see I've got the little Z icon here. I'm just going to rotate this way, just a couple degrees. And that's the freedom of this. You can rotate and do what you want with it. Okay, so let's bring on the second one as well now, just to sort of, we can line it all up and get everything working together. Now, you can either do the same as we did before, drag it on, turn it to 3D, and then use tracking null 2 to copy, or even easier from here, let's just label this with a color. Let's just give this a yellow or something. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit Control D to duplicate that layer, and I've got a duplicate now. I've got it highlighted. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to click and drag part 2 over to swap it out. Now I've got part 2 exactly over part 1, and I'm just going to move it over an X. And that was a much easier way of doing that. So let's just scrub the timeline here, and now we're going to need to move things into position. So this one is a little bit big. I'm going to take down the scale. Again, your composition will be different to this, but I'm just showing you how I've set up mine. I'm going to take it down to sort of 250. I think that might work better. Bring this down here, and obviously we want this to start a lot later. So our first animation finishes here. The sort of rocket goes out the top. So our second one, something like this over here. Let's give it a different color just so we can differentiate it. And now the new one will start, and the rocket comes in the top here. There you go, and we can see it come in. So I've got a sort of continuation. Now the whole point of the animation was to get the second bit timed quite well. Now what I do is I walk in front, and the idea was to make this flow of particles. So make the flow of the cube sort of spinning in front of you, almost like a wave. So as I walk, it sort of pushes the cubes in front of me. You can't see it really here unless I do a little quick run preview. There we go. So sort of as I walk along, it pushes the cubes away. Okay, so that was the general idea. Let's go back to mine, and let's go to here. And as you can see, I'm a little bit behind the time here, so I just want to move this over. I look up, I start to sort of turn back and push the cubes away. Again, you're going to tweak this, and you're going to have your own graphics anyway as well. Let's see. Yeah, see, now I want to move this over a lot further. So let's just do it this way this time. I'm going to hit the P key to bring up position, and I'm going to move our graphics way over. And let's see, just drag it over here, because I want it to sort of go off the edge of the screen as well. Oh, can you see what's happening there? Look at where our graphics is disappearing actually behind the wall. Let me just grab this X and just move it. Look at this. See this line here? This is the actual graphics appearing, sort of moving, penetrating with the wall. I'm glad this came up now, because you know, if you come into this problem that you know how to deal with it, it's literally just it's gone behind the other layer. Let's just switch our views here a moment. Let's just go to switch 3D view, and let's just have a little look at the top view. And I'm just going to zoom out here, and you'll see that because all the wall pieces that we put on, they weren't exactly all flat and dead at 90-degree angles, were they? Because we did the tracking of the wall. So if I select my wall graphics, you can see that's here, and the actual wall 5 is here. So it's actually, as it moves, it's actually penetrating. Let me just sort of zoom in here, and I'm going to just move this across. Can you see? It's sort of like mixing with, just sort of penetrating with this wall 5. You can see it happening there. So it's a really easy fix. All we need to do is just move it forward a bit, or even just rotate it in position. So let's just go back to our default view, our 3D, our tracked camera. And I'm just going to go to here and just go to fit, which will just snap it into position. And all we're going to do is move it forward in Z space. So let's just move it forward until it pops into view. There you go. Now it's clearly sort of in view, and now you know you can pull this as far forward as you want because we've got everything on different layers. Now I'm just going to bring up something else here while we're here. This is a 3D layer. You do not want this casting shadows, just in case you did have some lights in your scenes. I'm sure you haven't at this point, but this is a useful tip. So I'm going to go to my wall and in part 2 comp, and I'm going to also do it for my wall and in 1 as well. I'm going to open up the options down here, and I'm going to go to material options, which is down here, and I'm going to make sure I've got cast shadows as off. That means that it won't cast shadows. You don't want your graphics casting shadows because it's supposed to look like it's sat on the wall. Okay, so let's go back out to here. Let's press P. We've brought this forward. You know, you can always, if you want to rotate this as well. I don't know what your setup's like, so you might sort of, rotate this back into view this way. You might give it some. You might find necessary to give it some X rotation or something, depending if you've got something at a different angle. But I'm glad we came across that so that you know how to deal with it. So I think it just needs bringing forward. It sort of seems to be all right there. Let me just scrub the timeline, see what we've got here. So I walk past, it gets to our wall here. The rocket just starts to come in here. Let's see, and as you can see, it's still penetrating the wall there now that we've zoomed out. So you are going to need to tweak this. Obviously, take a little bit more care. I'm just going to bring it forward a little bit more. That looks good. Let's just scrub the timeline. So I look up, the rocket spins around, and then I go through and get right to the end. And then I want it to be, I want it to be off here. So here's the edge of my comp, and here's the edge of the wall. So now we know we need to move it over more. I'm going to zoom out here so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to move this over something like here because I want it to shoot off the edge. Now here's when you just have to play with the timings a bit. Let's see, so the rocket shoots off there. There's still a bit of a gap, so I'm just going to move this in X a bit more, like this. Obviously your graphics will be different. I'm going to move this down as well. Let's see, I'm going to open up the timeline here. Okay, and let's see. Oh, you can see what happened there. It just suddenly snapped away. This is just After Effects really. I'm using a graphics tablet. Sometimes things do just snap and pop and move out of place. It's a bit frustrating, but you get used to it. I do like to use a graphics tablet to do everything. So, okay, so that's looking much better. Okay, so let's have a little look. I'm just scrubbing the timeline now. Let's scrub the eye, it blinks, the rocket moves. Now I think I want to start my this animation later. I don't want it to be playing yet, so I'm now going to move up the timeline. I don't want it to start until I get there, so let's go something like here. There you go, so I want this to come in. And this is the fun part, just sort of getting creative, putting things where you want. There you go, that's better. So the eye finishes closing here. I'm now interacting with these blocks here. I turn around and I sort of push the wave of them on, and now I'm going to I'm just going to play with the timing a bit here, see what happens if I go a little bit later, a little bit earlier. Yep, and I'm also going to move my graphics over a little bit. Okay, this looks a lot better. Oh, see that graphics tablet problem again. Just going to move graphics over just a tad here. There we go, that looks much better. There we go, and I walk off, the cube shoots off the screen. Perfect. Okay, might need a little bit more tweak, but as you can see, what I would do now really is I would do a RAM preview. So I would open up this, I would hit your 0 key, give it a RAM preview to watch it back. I'm not going to, let you sit through the RAM preview. I will just quickly pause the video. Okay, I've just changed the timing of the start to start the animation a little bit later across here. Let's just watch this back and see what we get, just to check it over. Here we go. So it starts a little bit later, much better. I walk past, look up, the other animation starts in, pushes the particles across, and done. So that's working really well. So there you go. So that's how we get the graphics onto the wall. And now we're just going to move on now to sort of, at the moment it still looks quite linear, quite clinical graphics. So now we want to actually get it to sit like it's sat on the wall. We want to feel the concrete texture through it. So we're going to do that with blending modes. We're going to add a color grade, a bit of fake depth of field, just to polish everything up. So what are blending modes? Well, blending mode is an effect you can add to a layer to change how the colours blend with the colours on lower layers underneath. You've probably already used some of them by now, like multiply and stuff, to sort of make things transparent as well, but we're going to use blending modes to be able to sit our graphics on the wall, to mix them together. So let's just work with our wall anim one at the moment. Let's close everything down. Now I'm going to select the layer. Now if you don't see anything here, again we're going to go to toggle switches to toggle everything across, okay? So that's going to bring up our mode, our blending modes panel. Now you want to be able to switch through these, and there's quite a lot. You can have fun with these. There's a rather large library of different blending modes, and they all have their different uses, like sort of add, and you can see what they do, multiply. Now a good way of scrolling through them to see quickly, instead of just sort of having to go through the menu, is you press the shift and the plus button or the minus button to go back up. So watch this. Now I'm holding down the shift key, I'm going to press plus. Now you can see it changes to dissolve, and you might not see this here, but it slowly changes the effect. So I'm just going to skip through them. So I'm on darker now, and you can see that fits better already. I've got a multiply, and I'm just going to go through them a bit faster now. And you've got linear burn, lots of different things. You've even got ones down the end. Screen, by the way, is used, when we composite 3D layers together as well, screen and overlay and things like that. So you can see this is very quick and easy way of doing things, and you get some really interesting results, and the more layers you have on top of each other, they will blend with each other. And now I can hit the minus key to go back up. Now I think the blending mode I settled on was actually color burn, I think is the one I use. So I'm going to go up to color burn, and you can see that our graphics sit nicely, and also a good thing is it blocks out the white. If I take this back to normal, you can see that, just give it a chance to render, you can see anything that's white now goes to transparent, okay? So I'm going to go to normal, I'm going to go back to color burn, which is here. There you go, and it sits quite well. So let's just scrub the timeline, and you can really sort of feel the concrete texture coming through. So I'm also going to add the same blending mode to our part 2 as well. So I'm going to go to normal, and I'm going to go to color burn, and just check what that looks like. Again, it's knocked it all out, knocked the white out. That is, you can see that looks much better. Okay, so at this point I would probably do another RAM preview, just because I like to see it working, how it is. It might slow down your computer a bit more. I'm just going to hit 0, and it sort of gets a bit stuck here, but you can sort of see it working. I'm just going to start that again. There you go. And you can see that fits so much better, doesn't it? So, we've now got the texture of the concrete coming through. I'm just going to I'm going to pause this, and I'm just going to zoom in on this so we can see this working. And see this area here? That is, if you press RAM preview, but you haven't given it enough time, it sort of needs 2 or more frames, just in case you see that. It's not really an error. There you go. I'm only on 3rd resolution, so we're quite sort of pixelated now when I zoom this much, but you can see the texture of the wall coming through. Looks really nice. But have a play with different blending modes. You might want some layers on one blending mode and another layer above that on different blending modes. Really is up to you to sort of get as creative as you want. Okay, so now we've done that. Now we're going to sort of move on to do just final touching pieces. Now we're going to add a color grade. We're going to try and do that without any plugins, and a fake depth of field and a vignette, and we're done. We're good to go. So let's move on. So in my original, I had this nice sort of slightly blurred faded background. Now this is often referred to as depth of field. The further away from the camera, the more blur you have, or sometimes called bokeh as well. Now this is achieved using real lenses, like with low f-stops, but we're just going to sort of fake it now, because obviously it's just a motion design piece, and it really does add to the effect. If I just turn off my background blur layer there, you can see it just doesn't look as nice. I'm just going to turn it back on. And there you go, we're just faking it. And as you notice, it's also behind me as well, because we've rotated me out. We can sort of, we have the ability to do that. So let's go back to our tutorial here. So we're just going to do this now. We're going to do this with an adjustment layer, and this needs to go above everything but apart from me or whoever you're rotoscoping out. So we're going to go down to our layers here, and we want this to happen above grass edge. And so we're going to go to layer, new, and then we're going to go to adjustment layer, and we've just added an adjustment layer, which is, as you know, a layer that we can add any effects to, which will affect all the stack underneath it. So now we're going to go over to our effects, and we're going to go to, we need to look up, we need to look for our effects. So let's move this over here. We're going to go to Windows, and then down to Effects and Presets to load up this so we can search for it in here. It's a bit difficult fitting everything on one screen for you, but let's move this over. And now let's just type in, blur. There's a few different blurs you've got, and what we want is you can either use the Gaussian blur, which is the best one, or the quicker one, which is still really good. It's fast box blur. So I'm just going to select that. I'm going to drag it onto our adjustment layer. Okay, and then we're going to go over to our settings, and now just sort of drag this up to see how blurry you want this. Obviously that's way too much, so you just want a subtle amount, something like oh, there you go, that's just jumped up again. Let's try 5. That's probably a bit too much, so I'm just going to take this down to 3. Yeah, I think 3, something like that would be nice. So now, as you can see, it's just blurred everything, which is not what we want. We just want it to blur just this corner bit here and sort of grade it out. So I'm going to just zoom out a bit here. And now we're just going to simply draw a sort of a large mass. So we're going to select our adjustment layer. Let's just hit return and call this background blur, something like that. And now we're going to draw a mass. I'm going to come up to our pen tool up here. And we're going to sort of draw the corner off here. Now let's start maybe up here. I'm just going to click once, and then I'm going to click and drag so we can really sort of draw our own Bezier handle. I'm going to take this down to the bottom. You want to make sure you clear enough space around, because we're going to use feathering, and we don't want it to feather the top, the top right hand side or bottom. So I'm going to go over to here, plenty of room, over to here, and then close it off. Okay, so now I'm just going to zoom back in. As you can see now, it's only using our adjustment layer inside this mask. You could have done this the other way. You could draw the mask this side, and then you could go over to your blur, hit the M key for your mask, and you've got the options to go add or subtract. Obviously we're on add. So now let's zoom back in. There you go, you can see it here. And now I'm going to feather this. You can hit the F key to jump to your quick mode, or you can simply open up everything, open up your mask options, and it's there. Now drag the slider for the feather. So you're going to probably drag this quite far. We're using 4K footage, and we want a nice soft blur. So I've gone right up to sort of almost 600 pixels here. I'm just going to click off, so I just want to see what this is looking like without seeing the mask. And there you go. So it's quite subtle, but it's quite nice, isn't it? So, and now you can sort of tweak it for me. So if I just turn this off, here you go, that's with it off and with it on. So there you go. So from here, you might say you want to, okay, I want the effect to be more. Let's just take this up a little bit more. Let's go to 4. And then you might want to change the mask path. So let's click on path. Go up to our arrow tool here, and I'm just going to click once, and I'm going to shift click just to see if that selects it. There you go. I'm just going to move this over just to sort of play, where do you want this? Do you want this to start further down? Something like that looks nice. There you go. So that was really quick and easy to do. Fake depth of field, I'll just turn it off again. There you go. You can see it's quite sort of clinical. I'm just going to turn it back on, and there you go, we've got a fake depth of field. So we're starting to get somewhere now, starting to get a bit of a nicer feel. So that was pretty easy to do. Let's now keep going, move on. Let's add a sort of color grade next. So color grading, it's important that every project has some form of color grading. You would never take the raw footage from a camera and just put it straight into a project. It would look very clinical. It needs brightening up. It needs the best brought out of it. And the same with 3D renders. You would never just have a 3D render from Maya or whatever and just put it into your video project. It would be color graded to suit. And also it's subjective. It depends what the mood is. Do you want it dark? Do you want it sort of indie or cinematic? So this is only basic color grading, but what I did here, let's just have a little look. This is what we got so far, and in my original I took it to something like this. As you can see, it's got a lot more dynamic feel. I went for sort of quite a retro-y color grade. It's quite sort of burnt amber. It's got a retro feel to it. As you can see, this feels like it's just come out of the camera, and then this is how it looks when it's color graded. Now I do use plugins to color grade in my small studio, and any other studio does really as well. I use something called Magic Bullets, which is this one here, quite a lot, because it's got a lot of different good results. It's definitely worth it. You get some really good tools out there. But today we're just going to sort of do some basic color grading on our project without any plugins, just so you can try different things. And as I say, it's very subjective. It's just up to you. Depends on the feel you want to go for. Okay, so let's first of all start by adding a vignette. A vignette is just where the corners are darker. You've probably heard of that before. So let's just do that. There's lots of different ways of doing this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom out a bit, and I'm going to sort of go back to our project, and I'm going to sort of add a black solid. Let's just see if we've got one already. No, we haven't. So let's just go layer, and then new solid. So as you can see, we're selected down here. We need to be at the top layer, just in our actual comp to be able to get this ungrayed out. Layer, there you go, new, and then solid. Okay, and now we're going to just get a black solid, the same size as our comp. We've got 4K, and just put that straight over the top. Okay, so that's there over the top, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to get our masking tool, our elliptical masking tool. Our ellipse tool there. Now I'm just going to drag, I'm just going to mask this off just something like this, just so we can, as you can see, I'm leaving the corners. I'm going to go back to my move tool. I want to just sort of adjust this. I want to have more in the corners, something like this, okay, and as you can see, it's the wrong way around at the moment. So we're going to go to our mask, hit the M key if it's not open for you, and we're going to change from add to subtract. And then we're going to feather that mask, hit the F key to get to our feather, and we're just going to feather this up. You probably need some quite sort of big values, but you don't want it sort of bleeding too much over your footage. And let's just zoom back in. As you can see, so this looks quite nice. I mean, it's very dark at the moment though. I've just add a bit more feathering, actually, something like 420, something like that. So it's very dark at the moment. So what you can do is you can go to your mask options, and you can change the mask opacity here, or you can hit the T key and just change the opacity of the whole layer. It's up to you. So I'm going to take this down to something like 25, something quite subtle, and let's just have a little look what that looks like. So you can see I'm just going to select off just to get rid of the ellipse so it doesn't get in our way. As you can see, so I'm just going to turn it off and on. And a slight vignette is really good. It just helps us sort of focus the eyes into the center. It works for everything really, and you can now sort of drag the opacity up, make it a bit darker if you want, but something around 25-30 is good enough for me. So there you go. I'm just going to zoom back in. I'm going to sort of hit this little lock key so that we don't accidentally move it. There you go. So that's just a vignette, so that helps sort of focus the eyes. Now with the color grade, so what we're going to do is we're going to add, I'm going to close this layer down. We don't need to see have this open anymore. We're going to add an adjustment layer over everything, even over the rotoscoping, everything, because we want to color grade this. So we're going to go layer, new, adjustment layer, and it's added right over the top. Now I'm going to hit return, and let's just call this grade, something like that. Now, as I say, I would have used plugins, different sort of things to help me with this to get sort of a better result, but we're going to use no plugins at all. So we're just going to start with what's something called curves adjustment. Curves is great. I use it all the time to sort of boost exposure, boost the sort of dynamic feel of everything. We're going to drag this onto our grade, and as you can see, it comes up over here. Now this is what we're going to I'm going to adjust to sort of get a different feel, and again, this is completely up to you. I am now going to start with our RGB value. So you've got RGB, red, green, blue, and your alpha you can change separately, and we're going to as well. So if you come over here, it's good to start with a slight S curve. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to drag this down. As you can see, it brings down, it's very subtle, you can see it brings down, it's sort of like the exposure. I'm going to bring that down a very slight amount. It depends on your footage as well. If yours is more washed out, you want to make that stronger. And then I'm going to go further up the RGB curve, and I'm going to select, and I'm going to bring it up, okay? As you can see, it sort of brightens it up. So what we're doing is almost like the same as levels. It's sort of crushing the blacks, improving the whites. And if I just turn that off, there you go, it's sort of a little bit less less exposure sort of thing, really. It brings out the blacks and brings out the contrast in things. So it's very subtle. We've done the RGB. So now I'm going to go through the colors, and now I'm going to sort of do a little trick that adds a nice effect, really. It sort of changes the darks to sort of a slight blue. So you need to just play with this, because it's going to depend on your footage. So now I'm just going to go through, and I'm just going to sort of, I'm going to play with this. I'm going to adjust the red. I'm going to push this up a little bit, okay, and now I'm going to go to my green, and I'm going to decrease the green. So instead of adding green, which looks a bit strange, I'm going to decrease the green. Now you can see we're slightly getting this warmer feel. Okay, if I turn this off, there was our original. I turn it on, you've already got much more of a sort of indie film look going. And now let's do the final one, which has the best effect, which is the blue. And now I'm just going to add some blue back in. I'm going to drag this up, sorry, the wrong way. So if you drag it down, it loses the blue. So I'm just going to, again, drag this up. That's way too much. Just very subtle. I'm going to go up to the top of the blue curve this time, and I'm going to sort of play with bringing this up and down. Again, so let's say something like, that's a bit too purpley. It's very subtle. I hope this comes across well, okay, on the screen recording. Again, this takes sort of a bit of trial and error. So that's a nice sort of indie sort of looking feel. Now, let's just turn this off and on again so we can see. You can turn the whole layer off if you want. There you go. That's how it did look without. And there you go. That's how it looks with it on. And as you can see, it's so much better already. It's really got like a nice feel to it. Now with this adjustment now, you can carry on adding effects now. So this is quite nice. So if I just turn off the grade and the vignette, that was where we were. I'm going to turn both on together. A slight grade with the vignette, much better feel. Now you could take this further. So now you could say go to, I mean this looks perfectly good as it is. You could say go to levels, or you could try exposure. Let's just drag this over. And this is where you need to really experiment. So you might want to sort of up the exposure, get things brighter. Again, yeah, that's blown out way too much. Something like that there. Again, you could probably achieve the same with the RGB values in the curves, but you know, it's good to stack these things up. So so that looks pretty good. You know, you get the idea. So get in there, play with the curves. There's a lot of effects that would take hours to talk over them. There's a lot more color effects and everything as well that you can try, and you can also try adding grain if you're. But we've already got a film grain when we filmed it, which suits it quite well. So that's a very basic look at color grading, and as you can see, just from going from here, which looks sort of flat grey and very digital. And then turn this on, and we have a nice sort of sort of color grade here. And from here, you might want to play with tints, you know, adding more color balance as well. So you know, drag a tint across. You know, maybe too much, but again, just really play. So there you go. We've mapped our black, and you can get some really nice effects here. So you can sort of say do this, obviously, which is way overkill, but then you can say amount to tint, and you could just sort of give it a few percent. You see this? How you get this sort of vintage feel. You know, the possibilities are endless. You could play with this for hours. So that's another good effect. You can add a tint and just add, say, you know, 10-15%, something like that, to give a very vintage feel. I'm going to turn that off. Then you've got another one. You could say type in color. You can even try some of these sepias, the sky blues, these presets, but I prefer to do everything from scratch. Color balance is good. Drag that across, just change the values and see what you get. Okay, so there you go. We've added the color grade. We've added everything else. So we are literally done. So let's just chat about finishing everything off. So we did it. We made it to the end. Let's have a watch through. That's brilliant. It's really working well. We've come so far. There is just a couple more things you could do. So you'll notice that at the end, we've still got the fake depth of field on, even though we're sort of facing onto the wall. You might like that look, but if you want to get rid of it, just simply hit the grade layer, hit the T key and just animate the opacity off, or just animate the mask off, whichever is your preference. Also, in my original, I managed to get rid of the little car that was going by, but I did use Mocha again for this, but I used the Pro version, used their object removal tool. You don't need it, but if you did want to learn about that, that would take a whole tutorial on its own, so we're just going to leave that out for now. So we've come a really long way. I hope you've learnt so much from this, and I hope you like this project format of doing a whole project instead of just a small technique. Now, if you did learn something, just let me know in the comments below, and also I would love to see what you've created, whether you've used the free backplate I've supplied or you've gone out and filmed your own. That would be amazing. If you can just maybe come along to the private Facebook group, show everyone there. Also, I have started a Patreon page just to help support the channel. If you want, I'm going to be giving away more assets than I do normally, sort of VIP treatment, even maybe start up a private Discord channel, something like that. If you're interested, let me know. I'll leave the link below. So there we go. So that's it. We've made it to the end. Now we've gone through camera tracking, cleaning up a wall, setting up a whole project, color grading, masking, all sorts of stuff. Again, I really enjoy making this for you. It took me so much work, so please let me know what you did. Show us your work, and if you did like this, hit the like button. It really helps the video, and I will see you in the next one. So there you go, we made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed these lessons as much as I did making them. So much work went into making them. Now if you like this new format where I create an actual project in a little mini series instead of just teaching maybe a single technique, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback. Now again, I'm going to be giving away this backplate, this footage, free of charge for everyone to use. And also I'm going to be doing a follow-up video, if you're interested, on the tools and techniques I use in my actual own animation and graphics. Now again, if you've learned something, I'd really appreciate your feedback, a like, tell your friends, maybe subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.